Hi, this is Steve Schmidt, your host of the Magnetic Podcast, CEO and founder of Magnetic. We are here to talk with Greg and Annie Mork today. And when we talk about Greg and Annie Mork, we're not going to, as much as we love them and are going to get to know them, we're not going to go to the backlog of what they did in college and what they did after that, because that's probably not what you're here to listen about. If you want to know that, contact them after the show. You're going to be able to find out. But we're here to say, okay, they own a business together, husband-wife combo. So we're going to dig into that a little bit and the dynamics at play. I am starting to work more in my business with my partner, and she is my ex-wife. So it creates all sorts of interesting dynamics. So I can't wait just to ask out of curiosity's sake. But we're going to dig into content. And so I consider everything content, Greg and Annie. So when we talk about the world you live in, I want the listeners today to walk away with a couple things. Number one, hey, if I live in a unique space, where do I find out about where my people who are trying to solve the problem live? Because Greg and Annie are going to probably explore that today. And you're going to learn about spaces and ways they get places that you wouldn't think about. So listen up for that. We did have a share last week about Reddit, and we really dug into that as a place to get communal. So that was pretty interesting. And then also we like to say, what are the actionable tips? So Greg and Annie are going to get put on the spot and say, okay, give the listeners one thing that they can take away today. And the answer can't be, geez, I don't know. It has to be, well, I learned this today and I'm going to go do this, or I do this every day, or I on my treadmill talking my voice notes like a crazy person. And once in a while I pick out a post and I'll go, yep, welcome to the world of everybody. Like that's what everybody's kind of doing because we're here to create. But first and foremost, I digress. Greg and Annie, welcome to the Magnetic Podcast. How are you doing in the Twin Cities this morning?
We're doing well.
Thanks. Look at that. They said that. That's a true power couple. They said it at the same time. I like it.
We've rehearsed it.
Yeah.
Well, Annie, I'm going to give it over to you. Annie, why don't you introduce us instead of me being the podcast host who just tries to make you sound so awesome with all your accolades? What do you do and why should people care?
Yeah. So we have created a job board specifically for therapy professionals. It's Jobs for Therapists, and basically started from me being a speech therapist myself, looking for jobs consistently over the years. I did a lot of contract therapy, went into remote therapy as well, and basically discovered that the job boards out there aren't created for therapy professionals. That, you know, when you're looking for a remote health position or remote speech therapy position, you type in remote, you click that remote button on the popular job boards, and you're getting some remote jobs, but you're also getting some home health jobs. And if you're familiar with the therapy world, home health and truly remote are quite different. You know, home health, you're getting in your car and you're going to clients' homes. When you're truly remote, you got to wear your slippers and maybe your comfy pajama bottoms while you're meeting with kids online. So
sounds
very
awesome.
Different in that sense. I know, right? And that's why I did it a little bit.
My kind of therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The thing with home health is that if we come to your home, maybe you can still wear your PJs. We just have to look a little bit more professional in that sense. But basically I found that there wasn't anything made specifically for therapists. And thought,
why
hey,
not? Let me back up there, because
yeah.
I always say, like, okay, cool. When you arrive at that and you look at Greg across the dinner table and you go, I don't think anybody else has done this. Mm-hmm. Like, how did you find that out?
Yeah, we honestly just Googled it and we're just like, you know, therapy jobs. And you're scrolling through, you know, because you're going to get a lot of the big popular job boards that have the money to spend on being top of the page, you know, on Google. So you're going to multiple pages down, being like, who's on the 5th page of Google, you know, that has at least something out there. And I will admit there are some sites out there. They look like they were maybe made in 2005. You know, it's difficult to search on them. They might be really specific on, you know, travel positions.
SQL
but they're not
database or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really kind of looking archaic a little bit. Or, you know, the other side of it was the pricing, you know, realizing that job posting was really expensive. And so there might be a therapy job board, but they were charging tons of money for it. And so it wasn't as popular. So some of the...
let me zoom out a little bit. So like the Indeed.coms, where most people may look for those, I guess, you know, those major job boards, are you competing with that? Are you saying we're really peeling out a niche because they suck at it?
You know, I would say that, you know, I always say they're kind of our competition, but not really, because it doesn't seem like their focus is therapy professionals. So, you know, they have tons of therapy jobs on there. I use them to find positions and get connected with people. They are one of the big dogs in the job board world, but at the same time, they're not niche like we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's define niche. So Greg, I'm going to toss it over to you. When you think about niching down, to me, it's very scary as a founder? Because you can be broad and do a little bit of everything. Hey, here's some consulting work over here. You guys want to, and there's some this, got to pay the bills. Like when you really choose to niche down, you get that MRR cranking and the reality becomes the reality. Walk me through that, because now you're going to be creating your website. You're going to be creating content with a very specific messaging set. When you identified that niche, what resonated with you? What connected from a messaging where you said, there's the bridge. There's the message.
Yeah, we thought about it a lot, and just looking at Indeed, we just typed in something like speech therapy, and there were 80,000 speech therapy jobs coming up. So it's like, okay,
I'm going to apply to all of them.
Yeah, if we get 10% of those, like we'll be fantastic, and hopefully more and more over time. And we've kind of had the conversation of how nichey do we get, because you can get a specific therapy, a specific full-time, part-time travel therapy, maybe a fully remote speech therapy site, and we ended up kind of landing on everything therapy related. There, like Andy said, there's a couple sites out there that are a little bit more nichey, sites like Indeed, LinkedIn that are way more broad. But we found a lot of employers who were hiring for, say, a speech therapist. We're also hiring for occupational and physical therapists. So it's like that is our target market right there, is folks focused on therapy of all kinds.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say your market, that's the other scary part, right? You got to go get customers. That's also scary. How'd you do it? How are you doing it today? Walk me through it. Because a lot of people think I just post content to LinkedIn and I just push some outbound emails and then nobody answers. And whoops, I got to have a sales funnel. Walk me through that.
We started basically just cold messaging everyone we could find. The nice thing is Annie gets contacted by recruiters constantly. That's a whole nother thing that we could talk about, but she has plenty of contacts. She has people literally calling her phone, 3-4 times a week trying to get her.
Jeez, we've got a celebrity over here.
Yeah. Annie's got stories about getting called at 4 a.m. because she was in San Francisco and the recruiter was on the East Coast. And so the demand
4 a.m. sucks in San Francisco. Let's just say like the ambulances or the taxi cabs, and you're like on Midwestern time.
Right. It was such a cultural difference. Yeah.
Now, did you guys live in San Francisco?
I did. Yep. I did a 10-month contract out there. Yep.
Walk me back there real quick. San Francisco on a scale of 1 to 10, and we'll get back into the development of that sort of the business.
Yeah.
1 to 10 on San Francisco. Is it a great city?
So I was there. I moved there October of 2020. So you're kind of like a little bit of peak pandemic time, a little bit. San Francisco was pretty dead at the time. I would say for the experience it gave me, the 10 months I was there, I would say I would give it an 8. Coming from South Dakota, I had never really taken public transportation fully on my own or relied fully on public transportation. I didn't bring a car with me. I lived in a co-living house, so I had 15 random roommates. I was just like, hopefully they're not crazy, and had to share a fridge with them and bathroom, like all of that. And I just had
chances are good out of 15 people, you had some crazy people. There's a pretty good percentage there. Yeah.
I have some stories for sure, but also met some really great people from it. And they were instant friends for me. And they were kind of all around my age. And it was fantastically fun. But now as you get older, you're like, I don't know if I would go back necessarily, but I'm glad I did it.
Well, now you're with Greg and you founded this company, right? And a lot of people, I've heard people say to me, like, you have to be in San Francisco if you want to get in the scene, if you want to pick up in SaaS, right? So we'll get to that, right? Because there's South Dakota in there. There's where you live today, Minnesota. But Greg, back to the business development. Annie's going outbound. People are calling her. She's turning these jobs into positions. And there's got to be a methodology here, right? Because now you got to repeat it over and over again. So where are you developing business in sort of this measurable methodology? Are you guys tracking it on a funnel? Are you a spreadsheet and a CRM? How are you doing that today?
We do have kind of a homemade CRM spreadsheet that we could do much better at updating and keeping track of things. But we found the most effective tool is LinkedIn, just
Yeah.
sending cold messages, connecting with people. You can see their exact
Yeah.
title. They're oftentimes posting open
Yeah.
positions. So we'll see somebody hiring for a physical therapist and just send them a message and say, hey, would love to help you hire for this position. You can post it on jobsfortherapist.com. Here's a
Yeah.
link to our pricing, and they take it from there. You know,
Yeah.
it might be 1 out of every 5, 1 out of every 10. That's like, oh, cool. But we do get a lot of folks who are just open to the idea and say, hey, this is an
Mm.
awesome platform. I've had the same idea, or I've told people, you know, there should be a therapy specific site out there. So it kind of immediately gets traction for pretty much anyone we tell about, recruiters,
Yeah.
therapists, anyone.
So when's the money come in? So when you make money, how do you go make money? Is it, hey, I'm going to place this job, so I'm going to charge you X amount to get this onto our job board? And they go, yeah, that sounds good. We want to get on your job board too. That's really cool. Annie, it's great to meet you. You guys are so great. Is that kind of the vibe right now?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. So I would say, yeah, definitely they're when they're excited about it, they jump on the site. Sometimes they want to be walked through the process as well to, you know, kind of get onto the site, which is fair. I think a lot of the bigger job boards, you kind of have to do an onboarding process, but we try to keep it pretty hands off. But with it is like, it's just they log on, they, you know, select the plan that they want. They can get a single job post, a package, and it's a subscription based plan. And then they're just kind of on that plan and posting their jobs as they see fit with their credits that they purchased.
Okay, so that sounds way too easy. It sounds like you guys wake up, drink some coffee, kick some ass, and like keep doing it. And what are the challenges in this? Because it sounds pretty easy. Like I just got to buy some software, message some people. They're like, cool, check it out. They're like, wow, this is great. Sign me up, right? Like, what are the challenges of this? What do the hard days look like?
Yeah, we've found that it's pretty easy to get employers on the site, pretty easy to
Yeah.
get them posting jobs. Like we said, the demand is so high. The
Yeah.
trickiest part for us is finding those therapists and driving that traffic to the
Yeah.
site, which is where our content comes in. We
Yeah.
have Google ad campaigns. We've been dabbling in some LinkedIn ad campaigns as well. But
Very
that's
targeted.
really the key. And once we get those therapy job seekers to the site, the employers are going to be all over it.
Cool. How do you target them specifically? Are you using keywords? Are you really like lasering in on a title, a demographic, a firmographic?
Yeah, mostly keywords. And then if our employers purchase a job package, so 20, 50 plus jobs, we will create a dedicated ad campaign for them. So for example, you know, we have someone who's hiring for a behavior analyst in Detroit. We'll just focus on Detroit. You know, anybody who looks up behavior analyst jobs near me, they get sent that Google ad. It makes it a lot easier to compete with those big dogs who are, you know, spending $1 million on ads to get as niche down as you can. Largely Google ads, and, you know, geography and keywords is what we're working with right now.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. You know, I just did a search here, and obviously it's going to bring me to Indeed on like some top keywords if I type that in. And so I think, and the reason I bring keywords up is when you think about content, a lot of people forget, you know, they just want to write, and writing's great. Like, ooh, I'm going to write. Well, that piece of content to get liked, to get commented on is one thing. It does live forever. And so when people make a post to LinkedIn, I oftentimes will coach them and say, well, what are the words we're focusing on here? Because if you say the word, you know, speech therapist enough time in LinkedIn posts, it may show up in a Google search as well, because it's the internet, right? And so you just kind of go in this, you're either paying for the services that Google provides to target those people or LinkedIn, or you're hoping, and hoping is a strategy until you got to go make some money, that people who are these people will see this and go, oh my gosh, I got to get on there and get a job. And you're like, I got to go get those people. So this is the interesting side. I would call it a two-sided marketplace, right? Is that fair to say?
That is 100% correct.
Yeah. For those people listening out there, I mean, I'm no marketplace master, but if you think about the marketplaces you go to, are you a participant? Can people get your service? Can the marketplace make money off both sides is really how I look on it. Like if I'm going to Airbnb, can they make money off of a two-sided transaction? Can they bolt on services? Can they da-da-da? Yes, they can. But usually people start with a one or two-sided platform. Walk me through your guys' thought in terms of how you created the platform and why you decided to make it a two-sided marketplace. And what are your plans as you bake this out to make it easier for people to come and want to use this and pay for it? Sort of your 24-month roadmap, if you will.
So kind of how we developed the site, it's, we honestly at this point being a new business, you're looking for that minimally viable product, the MVP. And so we have used a template site for our website. So it's really someone else has created a job board site, but we were able to customize it, trying to keep costs lower as, you test things out and you try and see, is this a good idea? Do people want this instead of paying someone to develop this really big website? That's a goal down the way to say, hey, we can make this exactly how we want it and really target it exactly how we want it to. But right now, this is where we're at to say, is this a good idea? Do people enjoy this? Yeah. So that's really how we got started. It took a lot of research to find there's a lot of different job board, templates out there just to find the one that we wanted to use and fit our needs. And our needs have adapted over the last year that we've been doing this as well.
Yeah, it looks like you have 1,500 listings right now online, roughly. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, what about 1,430 to be exact? Okay, so I'm looking at that and going, so you're charging for every one of those on the side. So side marketplace says, I have a client who wants to list a job. They are paying me, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hooray. We love that. We want more of that, right? But they're not going to keep paying you unless you get people who come and then take the job, or candidates who show up in their analytics and are funneling into their system in a positive way, right? Correct?
Right. Yep, exactly.
Right.
Cool. How many job listings do you want in 2 years?
Ooh, in 2 years, I would love, across kind of the different therapy, careers that we have, in 2 years, I would say if we had 100,000, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing the math in my head. Sorry for everybody listening out there. They're going, well, if it's $10 a month, $20 a month, like, what is that? Yeah, that's a lot of MRR, right? Sounds great, right? Mark Cuban would say, I'm interested. I'm leaning in.
Yeah.
That sounds great. How are you going to go do this, Annie? You got to go scale this. Yeah. How are you going to go do that? You're one person, Annie. You cannot do that all day. So I'm assuming you're going to rely heavily on content to go do the work for you. When you think about that, what is your plan to get out there, get your faces out there, get the name out there, get the message out there?
Right. And this is really an area where we're hoping to grow. So, excited for a conversation on, areas we can improve on this. But, LinkedIn is, it's always made sense to be on LinkedIn in the sense that job seekers go to LinkedIn, people network on LinkedIn. And so being on there from the beginning works really well for us. We have our company site, we're posting to that. I think when I've talked to people about how can we boost our LinkedIn presence, they're like, we try and, help your acceptance rate from, LinkedIn connections. I have a surprisingly high acceptance rate on LinkedIn just because.
How high? 60%?
Yeah, I would say 80%. Yeah.
Breaking the sound very well. It's because you just this Midwestern unassuming, smile, sunflower field behind you, no big deal. I'm not an axe murderer, and you're not gonna get a cold DM from me. Just kidding.
Yeah,
it's coming, right? So that's high.
Yeah, it really
is. Annie has the SLP, it's Annie Mork, CCC, SLP in her title.
Yeah.
So people see that and say, that's a therapist. On the recruiter side, I want to be connected with therapists. I want to, hire them and get them to our company. And on the therapist side, you're like, oh, this is just another one of us. She knows what it's like. She understands that we don't want to get contacted all the time. So I think that is a big part of it is she is a therapist.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's one of those, I don't want to say serendipitous things, but it's smart. Good on you for saying, hey, we can use this to our advantage here and build a business around it. And, I think a lot of people out there, if they're listening, would have to say, okay, well, that's great, but I don't have that advantage, or I don't have that 3 letters to put behind my name. I got to live and hope that they get out to me on the YouTubes of the world, the LinkedIn. So if I'm going on YouTube, let's say, I say Google/YouTube, they're kind of the same to me in terms of where people go. What would people be typing in if they're looking to solve this problem? If they're on the employee, you want to find them as a candidate, what would they be typing in?
It's usually a combination of type of therapy and job or career. So physical therapy career or jobs hiring physical therapists near me, combinations like that. We have had a lot of hits on people looking up just salary information. It's one thing
Yeah.
that we really stress to our employers is therapists are in such high demand. They can kind of have their pick of whatever job. If you can post a actually competitive salary and say a number instead of saying competitive salary, that's going to
Yeah.
make a world of a difference. And so we'll
Yeah.
see a lot of people type in, what is an occupational therapist salary in Texas?
Yeah.
And they get sent to our site and they can see actual job posts of folks hiring and how much they're paying.
That's
So
great. I'm gonna share this with you and the audience for those people who are viewing. I think you can see my screen here. So when I type in physical therapy careers near me, and if I sort by the highest view count, you guys can see this, right? I always have verify even on a podcast.
mm-hmm.
Well, this person, we're not going to go here because I always say this is AI, right? And this is kind of like, well, I'm disinterested in that because anybody can go do that and try and get there. And it looks like they paid for a lot of views. I want that job, physical therapist assistant. So, like, what's happening out here? We're really seeing people walk through and do simple description of what's happening. And here's a good video. And here's what you would need to do if you wanted to get this job. And I always say that the meat and the potatoes happens in the call to actions. And so, like, when people are looking at this, one of the first things they think is like, I got to get a video up on YouTube. Don't forget, you want to get the title of it to be something people are actually looking for. And just like email, what a fifth grader could understand. How to make pancakes, how to make the best pancakes, not put a little flour in it and flip them. Like, you got to be very keyword heavy because this is how you're going to show up on YouTube. And then down here, where do you go find the rest of it? I could really like Annie and Greg and say, wow, that was a cool podcast. Huh. But if I can't go find them, I have no idea where to do it. I'm not going to jot their website down on my Post-it note in my car or the treadmill at the gym. And so, like, a lot of people on the basic side of YouTube and B2B, since we're not typically consumer selling, sort of forget that this is very much a place to drive people to the place you want them to. And in addition to that, Annie and Greg, where I've seen the biggest successes for in this space, for example, this is one video. If people reduce this kind of video to shorts that are 60 seconds or less and say, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why those perform really well, because they get picked up in sort of these searches when I'm out there, like, looking for something. And all of a sudden I go, oh, interesting. And then I go view the other videos in the series, right? So now I'm viewing your second video and your third. And pretty soon I'm going, who are these guys? And then I subscribe to your channel. And then instead of hoping the algorithm reaches me, I get a little ding every time. And then I go sign up for a job. I get a job and I go, man, I'm really glad. That's how people do it, guys. Like and you guys know this, but like, for everybody listening out there, that is what people would dream of when they wake up as a founder, to say, that's how I want it to go, just like that.
Yep.
And then they go, how do we make it happen? And that's what everybody stops and goes, it's a lot of work, because you can talk about a paid strategy. You can talk about an organic strategy, but I always say, start with the strategy of making a lot of content over and over and over again, and putting really good titles and really good descriptions and doing it every single day. I don't do it myself yet because it really has to be this, like, for me, like, it's just a thing. If I did the video every day and focused on the problem people are trying to solve with me, I would have a flow of leads that was so rich, because there's a space and a carbon and niche, but I don't know our messaging yet. So when you guys think about this, are you going, man, we should probably sit down and do a 2-hour dinner tonight and talk about a YouTube strategy? How do we get on the top? How do you think about YouTube and your overall strategy? And what are you doing about it? I'm going to stop sharing there.
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel. It's interesting hearing your point on, the educational, day in the life kind of videos. We think that's what people really want to see. When we started out, it was just a very, like, simple, this company is hiring for this position in this place. This is how much it pays. Go check it out at jobsfortherapists.com. And not really engaging. People want to find those jobs eventually, but that's not what they want to see as they're just scrolling on their phone looking for entertainment. Whereas Annie made a video about her experience as a travel therapist. It's like the do's and don'ts of travel therapy.
Let's go to it. How do I find it on YouTube? Because I got, this is the funny, I always say, what's your YouTube page? People are like, and then you got to type it in and go.
Jobs for Therapists, at Jobs for Therapists, everywhere.
So I just go to at Jobs for Therapists.
You should find it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go there at Jobs for Therapists. And keep in mind, this is where it's because I'm never going to go there. I mean, I'm very rarely going to go there and go, I'm looking for this specific page unless I want to subscribe to it. So I'm going to share this out real quick. Thank you guys for your patience. Let's pretend we're on the internet here. So we're on the internet here. So, okay. So, that's your website. We don't want to share that. Well, we do, but we're not looking for that. So pardon me. Oh boy. There we go. YouTube. Okay. So I'm going to subscribe. Look at that. Because you're on the show, you get a free subscription from me. No, just kidding. I really, and this is good, right? Because as you can see, I have quite a few over here and I have 174 subscriptions. Got to tune it down a little bit. So, okay, look at this.
So who is Jobs for Therapists is a great example of, where it's the third short in from the left, where is the trend where everyone was like, we're blank. We're going to.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So you got some traction here. So this is like 374 views. Did you guys get some people coming inbound off of that video?
Definitely. And
look at that.
So that's the more standard, just here's a job, are you looking for something? So we pepper those in as well, kind of with the more educational or more entertainment content. But
what if you did that and sold it and said we'd feature this in social, right? So if you think about packaging that, like, hey, we'll feature this and do a short on it if you did this, right?
We're right there with you, Steve. That is a feature that folks can buy as an extra on top of their job. For $200, we'll create a video and push it to everywhere. That. So we got 5,000 followers on LinkedIn, 1,500 on Instagram.
Annie meditating, Greg on a run. Like you get the followers. You're hosting a talk show in 3 years. Annie and Greg, like I can already see it happening. So there's this powerhouse. You guys believe in content. I love this. So, okay, how do you get 100,000 views instead of 300? This is the question we all want to know, right? Because everybody's going, well, if you could tell me, that'd be great. Guess what? I don't know the answer. I charge a lot of money for it. How do you get to a lot of views here? So I know you wake up and if you're like me, you check your stats and what's going on in the business. Yeah. We all want to wake up someday and go, holy smokes, I got a viral video.
Yeah.
Is that the goal? Like, how are you measuring that?
I think it's, we want to make sure that we're reaching the people that are looking for jobs. It's one thing to go viral. We had one of our shorts, one of our early on ones, it got hundreds of views. I would say almost 1,000 views, like within 24 hours. We're like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And we looked at the statistics. It was like overseas somewhere, like some country, that was not the United States, we're United States based. And so really, our thought is it's great to go viral, but if you're not reaching the people who want your services, what good is it at that point?
Yeah. Well, how cool would it be to if you think about the people who are on LinkedIn and YouTube who are looking to solve the problem on both ends that you help solve, mm-hmm. If you could wake up every day and make sure you were on the front page of their feed, right? Like that's what we're all hoping for. And you're connecting, Annie, right? So when you connect, now you have the ability to, right? You're in their feed. Or if you're on LinkedIn, you cross your fingers and hope, depending on what LinkedIn's algorithm's feeling like that day, you end up in their feed. And if you're on YouTube, different game. How are you going about building this big base, and how are you going about delivering content to them on LinkedIn in particular on when I say daily, maybe that's too much, but on a consistent basis? Or have you approached that in a way that's you're comfortable with? Or, it sounds like the DMs work really well. Is the content itself, should I say, moving people to action?
I would say most recently, we've kind of honed in more on our content and we've received more traction with that. And then from that, I've decided to boost different posts and whatnot. And so kind of like we're in that double-sided marketplace with that. So it's, we're trying to advertise to job posters, those employers and recruiters. We're also trying to get the applicants to the site as well. And so, a lot of it is trying to, talk about our pricing and, why is it good and, all of that. But I would say our main focus is on the applicants, because the DMs are easy to the employers. You can kind of reach out to one employer and get thousands of jobs on the site, whereas you need to get one applicant. And so with our ads, we've tried to really kind of appeal to the job seeker and say, why do you want to be with us? We're educational. We get it. We're not going to call you at 5 a.m. We're different.
Yeah. You're a community, right? You're building a community of job seekers.
Yeah.
I can see it and feel it. Now, what are you repurposing your YouTube videos onto other platforms like LinkedIn and then using those to gain traction there as well?
Yep. Yeah. So really they kind of start initially as a reel. So we start on Instagram with that. And that was kind of the initial, platform for it. But then
that's your hot channel.
It's one of them. Yeah. Cause that's where you find a lot of the community on it. And that's our main goal with Instagram, is build that community, that knowledge base with it. But then those videos get shared to every other platform.
Yeah. So let's talk about the platforms, because I think people get dizzy quickly. I don't think about Facebook a lot myself for my business. I'm going to skip over that one just because I don't know much about it. And I just don't foresee the space there. So let's talk about LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I mean, you guys run a business too. So it's like you got to run social media, you got to run business. Where do you draw the line and go, man, I mean, we could go big on this thing, or we could just keep like plucking away at it?
Yeah, we've definitely toyed with the idea of hiring a social media manager, content creator, something like that. Yeah. Right now, for the size that we are, and we have the capacity to do it ourselves. So that's where we focus our efforts. But we have decided to hone in on kind of, the LinkedIn, Instagram. We do post to Twitter, X, whatever you call it, Pinterest, and then YouTube. Yeah. Those are kind of our 5 main ones. With it. Yeah.
Do you use a platform? Do you use a platform to schedule it out then and try and coordinate everything?
We sometimes have used it. Sometimes it's just kind of is easier in that moment. It feels almost more organic to just in the moment be like, let me type this out.
Yeah. Mel Robbins says that same thing. Actually, Mel Robbins is I just crank out a post and she's famous, so I don't think it's that hard to conceive that it doesn't have to be this well planned out, thought out strategy with pillars and executable SQLs and MQL. Then people kind of go let's invent some jobs where we can say I have a job reporting SQLs and MQLs. And you're like, what?
Right.
We just want to build a community, man. But is that daunting to think about? Because if you do good, you got to go form a company and then hire people. And that, we haven't talked about any of that. This is the idea of creating content. When you think about 150,000 job postings or whatever that amount was, what is the growth strategy? Are you guys looking to hire and grow with people, remote people, an office downtown? What does that look like?
Yeah, would love to grow and hire some people as we, enter into those spaces. Definitely stay remote. We love the remote work right now, so no need to spend money on an office or anything.
Good.
But yeah, I think, we've definitely tried to move towards that. How can we, let go of some of the responsibility when we get to that stage, and let someone else handle sales or social media, things like that.
Yeah. Do you ever wake up? I had this thought as a founder today. So let's peel off content for a second. I feel pretty confident most days, right? I'm pretty okay, even when the business is not going great, I'm well, okay, there's a path forward. We just got to do this and this and this. And for no particular reason today, I think it's just I let my head go there. I was just man, I could be scared shitless doing this. There is so much that you have to do right every day. And you're going to do some wrong things. And then you're man, I'm running a business. And it occurred to me, I've been doing this for a couple of years. I've had a couple of businesses and I have learned a lot in 2 or 3 years, but I still woke up and got a little scared because I was thinking hey, this is a lot. You got a lot when you're a one-person company running a 70K book a month with, 4 contractors behind you. It feels like a big weight some days. Does that ever feel that way to you guys? I mean, I know the easy answer is never. Our life is great. But let's get real. What does the weight feel like some days, and the responsibility that most people fail at this thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say definitely a huge weight with it. There's a little bit of the maybe imposter syndrome, but I've talked to people where they're wow, you really think you can go up against LinkedIn and Indeed for job posts? And I'm well, yeah, I'm hoping so. But, I said, I don't truly consider them competition because they're not focused specifically on the therapy world. And I've had really great feedback from employers that they want this platform. But there's the kind of can we do it? I have the therapy background. Greg has the business background, which has been a pairing. Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly.
The world is crazy. Like when you look at the people who are successful, the only difference between you and them is they went and did it consistently
Yeah.
over time. And everybody's story kind of looks the same. A lot of failure, a lot of enemies along the way. It sucks, but it's true. Like, because you don't usually do something great without a lot of people trying to say like, oh, I don't like what you're doing on the way there. Or, hey, I'd do it differently. Or in social media, a lot of people, and I heard this on a podcast reiterated this morning. I was listening to Rich Roll. He's my favorite listen to for walk time.
Oh yeah.
The guy from the Misfits was on. He's awesome, man. He's just like, he's all about friendships. Like he's about talking about dudes with friendships. And I'm like, nobody talks about that. So I'm listening to this. And I'm listening to this podcast. And I think the most interesting thing I heard was the podcast is the truest form of the metaverse. And I was like leaning in and going, what? And they said, think about it. We all listen and we're inside somebody else's head for a period of time, whether or not we're going, I feel that way too. And we're living in that way. And so that is the metaverse. And so I think it was Mark Cuban maybe who originally said it, was like he invented the metaverse because he invented audio casting, voice casting. And I thought that was really interesting because I find myself getting sucked into these things. And I think that's where we all want to get, right? We all want to create this podcast or this piece of content that just sucks people in. And we're Mel Robbins all of a sudden. And like, that takes a lot of work. And you guys are trying to keep a company afloat. It's driven by social media. You're very optimistic. What's the big bet? So if you had to narrow it down to one social media channel and you had to eliminate everything else and you couldn't use them, what's the one you'd bet on and why?
Ooh, I don't know if we would have the same answer on this one. I'm a big LinkedIn guy, and I'm biased coming from the business world. So my background's in finance, currently work in finance, and I'm on LinkedIn. I was on LinkedIn every single day, even before we got on Jobs for Therapists. And I just love that you can find someone with the job title that you're looking for. I mean, that's just perfect for us.
Tough to do on other platforms, right? Like there's nothing on Instagram where I can go filter out people by job titles.
For sure.
No. And surprisingly on Instagram, people will put, like, I'm a speech therapist and I don't put speech therapist in my title on Instagram, but a lot of people do. And that's how we found people. But I would probably agree with Greg that LinkedIn, it is a two-sided marketplace as well, probably multiple marketplace, beyond that, but it is kind of, we can use what you can call a competitor to our advantage as well.
My kid said the other day, is LinkedIn a thing? I was like, yeah, that's what I do for a living. I'm like, there's this $5 billion a year company. Like they're doing okay.
Yeah,
$5 billion. Let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people go, does LinkedIn work? I'm like, guys, like, okay, let's talk about it. They have ads, which is a huge moneymaker for them, right? Nobody really knows if they work or not most of the time. Sorry, I just had to say it out loud. That's every ad platform. You never really know if it's working or not until it starts to work and you pay them more money. And then they're like, we like this. Paid media, right? It's a thing. And I'll always say, I don't talk about paid media a lot on the show because I just don't know a lot about it. And honestly, I haven't yet. I'm going to use paid media as a strategy, but as a bootstrapped owner like you guys, I'm going, well, I don't have $5,000 a month to put into paid media. I would love to put $5,000 into LinkedIn ads and repost organic video and try and engage in a call to action. I slaughtered it though. I went and tried to do it on my own once. I was like, oh my God, I think I put it like targeted like cowboys in Texas on accident. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, oh man, paid media is a totally different beast. Organically though, to your point, you can go out on Sales Navigator, create lists, target those lists. A lot of people will just get a sniffer software, automate that, DM 2-3 days later, whatever. I do that, right? It works. Sometimes people will be like, your automation sucks. I hate you. And I'll be like, cool. Like I asked the other, I got that message the other day. I was at Five Guys with my kids and we were eating peanuts, and we love cracking the peanuts in half and then the shell, and I just eat them whole. And my son was looking at me, and I was looking at this message, and I usually don't look at my phone, but it said, "This message sucks. I'm offended. I expected more coming from you." And I was like, huh. I said, oh, I understand. I'm like, it's actually an automated message and you're part of a test. I said, would you have any feedback for me at all? Would you prefer personalization? Because that takes a lot of time. Or someone in your place, what would you recommend? And he was like, wow, I've never been asked this question, but here's my advice. And 10 paragraphs later, it was really good advice. And it was really like, we got in this good conversation, but we all know you can turn those FUs into a very pleasant conversation because They care. They care enough to tell you to F off. So they care about something. Do you guys do that sort of DM stuff? Let's talk about that. And I'm just talk out loud about it. It's no secret. Like, do you guys go out with this templated outreach and then play personalization after that? Or are you going out one by one by one?
We've done both. We've done the kind of.
Go for it, Annie.
We edit this. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we've honestly done both. We've had the automated messages and they were not as successful. We did it for like a month. So maybe we should have given it more time, but it just didn't seem to be, we were using like Sales Navigator to try and like, just automatically identify the people at companies that we'd want to talk to. And it just wasn't as successful going one by one. And, it takes time we copy and pasting the same message, but saying, hey, enter name, can we partner with your specific company? Sometimes using like the name that I know is more of an abbreviated version of it to be like, this is customized. Like, I know that this is like, you go by this, or I can shorten it to this because that seems more customized. And we've had a lot more success with just those like specific. It doesn't seem like it's timed. It doesn't go out exactly an hour after they accepted our request. It's like, hey, it's like a couple days
likes
later.
The last 3 posts, like views their profile 74 times.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dear Mr. Greg Mork, would you like lead generation services or website design services or any PowerPoints?
Yeah.
Hey, I always say like, so those obviously work because they keep sending them. So somebody out there's like, you know what? I am looking for a website. What's your rate? Right. And then they're just like, ching. Like I say though that I've tested it, and the best we've had is automation. And I will just say that out loud because I've worked for companies even and touted that personalization is where it's at. Personalization feels better all the time when you receive it. That's why people say it. Nobody who writes likes to personalize at scale. It sucks to write 100 cold emails a day. I've done it. I've made 100 videos in one day and got like maybe two responses. Like I've tried all these stupid things and they're all stupid until they start working. And I love to test things like this, guys, because I've tested voice DMs, for example, on your mobile phone. I don't know about Android. I'm not crazy. I don't own Android. I have an iOS. I have no idea what it's like on the west side of town where people with Androids live. On the south side of town. But I know that when you're on Messenger on LinkedIn, you can just hit the message button and dictate a note back. That way it's a voice message. People go, huh, what the hell? Like, and then they listen to it and, it's a thing, right? And you can also just send a video from your car if you're parked at Whole Foods or whatever, like whatever people want to do. Like the creative outreach does not have to be automated. I like the automation because when they respond and say, go screw yourself at Five Guys, I can take a video with my son eating some hamburger and cracking some peanuts and make him feel a little guilty for being an asshole on a Saturday, And to me, that's when it starts to humanize a little bit here. And how do you, when you think about that, knowing Annie, you're very video friendly, you look a little bit like Anne Hathaway. I think I told you it the first time I met you, Greg. We always go up, right? We always marry up. Yeah, I'm not insulting you, by the way. It's a fact of life. Like men we have to survive. And how do you scale this though? Like, how do you do this? Is it like there's a solution out there I love, and I certainly don't get paid for this. It's Potion.io. It's video at scale where Annie, you could sit there, or Greg, you could sit there. You could both sit there and go down this list that you create, and it would say, "Hey, Steve," and it would have my website in the background, right? And people go, "I don't like that. It doesn't feel authentic." And I go, "Cool. When's the last time you received one of those?" They go, "I don't think I ever have." I'm like, exactly. Those kind of solutions are out there. What's stopping you from doing something like that today?
Yeah, I would say, I have received those messages and we've been able to pick out because our website has changed over the course of time. We can say, hey, this is an old one. Like even though they just sent me the message, they're using a website from 2 months ago. Like they didn't actually look at it. Like it doesn't, I think and maybe it's the speech therapist in me that it's like, I'm about that connection, that communication with it. And that it's like, in a world of AI and automations that it doesn't feel authentic to me. And I'm like, I'm not going to give you the time of day if you send me some video.
We're out on video. I like it. Okay. I like it. So you guys are like writing hand notes and throwing airplanes over here. You guys are doing it the old fashioned way.
Yeah. We got the pigeons out back. We're just doing it that way.
Yeah. You got a couple turkeys out back, like chickens, like you're going to make some dinner tonight. Like you're writing Post-it notes and putting them in the mail. But honestly, like it's a homegrown method and it works for you. And I say, great, that's what works. And we're not here to, like, we've concentrated a lot on what we could be doing or what we should be doing. And I always say, like, to people, hopefully we all learn on this thing, because otherwise what a good is an hour of your time. But there's things you know today that you can share with other people. What is, as we close this episode for each of you, and I'll help kind of steer it because you guys have been great about not stepping on, call it the talking toes, but like you're both founders, like you're both doing this thing. You're both eager to talk. I love it. Annie, you first. What's your one piece of tactical advice? If someone's listening and saying, I liked what Annie said, I kind of like that she's homegrown and she's very personalized. Like, give me a piece of advice so I can get started doing kind of what you're doing today. What would that piece of advice be, Annie?
I would say do your homework on the companies that you're reaching out to. I think it really means something when you can say, hey, like for us, like I know you're hiring for 4,000 different therapist positions, or hey, I know you're hiring for just one. I think that personalization behind it and knowing who you're talking to versus coming and being like, I don't know who this is. Like there's plenty of companies that I have never heard of and they're reaching out to us and I get to learn about them, but taking an interest in them and trying to figure out what their problems are, you know, to be like, you know, what have you tried? You know, how can we help? How can we make our business better, you know, from your experience?
Yeah. Okay. I like that. The personalization of even a number of jobs. That is something that people try to automate, but then again, it can get real sloppy. I like that. And you're also taking the time to do it. Annie, thank you. Greg, what's one piece of advice you would give the listeners today? Like a tactical thing that they can walk away with?
I might roll two pieces of advice into one. I'd say first, to circle back to your feedback from the customer that you received. That feedback is gold. And when we started, Annie basically made the first website herself and, you know, didn't have the nice fancy template that worked really well. She just kind of, you know, threw together some filters and started sending it to people. And this one message she got back was like, hey, checked out your site. It's super clunky. It's super hard to use. I won't be using this. I was like, all right, that hurts to receive, but also fantastic to know. All right, this isn't working. We got to go a different direction. And eventually, you know, found a good template site, worked really well. You know, looks way more professional just immediately, which kind of drives into my second point, which is try different things. You know, as we were talking about our reels and our shorts, you know, we started with just a template and we were doing it the exact same every single time. And it was just me in front of the screen saying, here's a job. And we were like, we got to make this a little bit more fun and interesting. So you can go back to some of the early ones. I'm like flipping over the couch and then I'm like, hey, if you're looking for a job, and it's like 10 times as many views just because it's something interesting to kick it off, even though it's the exact same content. So the more A/B testing you can do, the more you can just throw things at a wall and see what sticks, the better.
Yeah. I always feel like people feel like they got to be the guy hiking up a mountain and like having the dramatic music on Instagram where they're like, hey, you look at yourself. You're good enough. And I'm like, nope, that person's not even selling. I mean, you don't even know what they're really selling. Like, why did they make that video? Be that person, though. Like, be the person who pulls them in with something else. And I tell a lot of my clients this, right? They all thankfully are doing really well. They're very patient. Like they all, when they signed up, like I look at them in the eyes, I go, you guys know that content takes a while, right? So like, there's going to be things that happen from some DMs, right? Things like that. I love to say my job is simply to tee up a conversation because I used to head up revenue. I mean, I'm obsessed with data and analytics and dashboards. It kills me that I go and I don't care about the attribution because I, as a content creator, can't be worried about the outcome, but I have to know that it needs to end up there, right? And so people get obsessed with that idea, but I also say, you know what? I use in my personal journey, like when I was crazy enough to go after being divorced with my wife for 6 months and go, wow, I made a crazy mistake. And I went on Google and I was like, you know, I did my keyword search and I was like, I bet you nobody's ever thought that way before. And I was like, oh, there's certainly people who have thought, oh, there's coaches. Oh, there's community. There is paid program. Oh my goodness. There is 102 coaches who are all trying to help you get your ex back. And it was so interesting to navigate like the bro stuff and then the this stuff. And I ended up on the one person who was like, for married people who are older and maybe a little bit boring, like that person who is like, and want to do it with like spirituality and morality and those things intact. And I learned a lot. Like I literally credit that guy, and he's like my homie. I paid him maybe $210. I went to 4 LinkedIn live or YouTube lives. And if I paid $20, I could get to the top of the comments. And so I would cheat. I'd be like cleaning up my house at night, like thinking about like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. Like this is never going to work. I'd be like, I thought of this really good question. I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to tip him. I'll get to the top and I'm going to cheat. And he'd be like, there's my homie, Steve. And he's like, Steve, with the question from Sioux Falls. And I'm like, felt like I was on the FM radio. And I was like, I got my question answered. And then I get the transcript afterwards, and I'd listen to it, and I watched all 200 of his videos, all 200 of the free videos. And then I paid him maybe a couple $100 2 times to do a coaching session, right? But I got steered in the right direction for something very important in my life that, call it niche, was very niche. And it was not some cheat code. It's like you still go do the thing, like, but it's kind of like gives me the guideposts. And we're always looking to solve problems. Some of them are as weird as the one I just described. Some of them are as simple as I want to go find a job. I think the powerful moment is when you as a creator connect in the head of them in the moment when they're thinking about it. And that's when magic is created, right? That's where they can go, oh my God, if I could just find a therapist job that didn't, oh my God, this is it. Like, oh my, what? Annie, are you okay? Like, boom, I'm following Annie. Like I'm following Greg and I'm seeing these jobs and I sign up. And that's the content experience. And that's the funnel. We want them to all go down. So I think what we heard today was Annie and Greg are trying these great things. They're going to keep trying it. I guarantee in 2 years, you're going to look at them and they're going to be blowing up on these channels because it sounds like they're committed. So Annie and Greg, thank you for sharing some of your learnings and I say earnings, right? Because this is the work you're doing, what you're doing today. Where do people find you on social? And then give them the job board and the whole advertisement one more time before we wrap.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So yeah, we are very much on LinkedIn, just Annie Mork, Greg Mork. We try to keep our social media channels very simple. It's anything Jobs for a Therapist. So on Instagram, it's at Jobs for a Therapist. We saw on YouTube, it's Jobs for a Therapist. And then also on Twitter and /X, whatever you want to call it, we're JF Therapists. Couldn't get the full Jobs for a Therapist one, which was a bit of a bummer. But yeah, I would say really LinkedIn and Instagram are the biggest ones to connect with us on. If anyone's wanting to chat further, we love just talking strategy, learning from others, but just sharing ideas. Sometimes it's just sitting down and talking about things, being like, oh, I never thought about, advertising on Reddit ever. I don't use Reddit, but other people do. And so I was happy to connect on that as well.
Reddit is where you go to just feel terrible about yourself. Like I ended up getting burned once on Reddit after a failed company transaction. And like 80,000 people were just like, burn him to the ground. And I was like, never again. And like, not necessarily by name. And I mean, it was a bad deal, but it's like, I remember going, I could never go into Reddit again. And whatever. That was a couple years ago. I'm a big fan of Linktree myself. I think that Linktree has been like the site where I would say if I have found the most joy in trying to understand how the simplicity of that works. Do you guys use Linktree at all?
We do. Yep. On our Instagram account, we have that.
Yeah, of course you do. So it's like, I used to on Instagram, I'm like, what the crap is this link? But why do I have to click on this link? That's it, right? Now you go to the site, it's the content tree. And so I always just share this out real quick at the end of it because, of course we got to tell people where they can find us, and that's not what it's about. But I do share like, hey, we're sharing tips the whole time. I simplify things. This is the busiest link I have. It's where I have a book appointment on LinkedIn. It's where things are. I kind of say, well, our website sucks still. It's going to be good. But this is kind of where I tell people to go for now. Like you can learn how to cold call. You can, sign up, meet me and talk about it. You can, go to our YouTube channel. And I tell people like, this is where you want people to experience the first versions of you and maybe get something, right? Because this is where I, as a business owner, made the partnership agreement. Well, maybe we'll resell Apollo, right? Because that's something we use. And so there's income coming in there. It's almost $1,000 a month now, which is great, right? People using it, signing up, and we get a list of people who are signing up with Apollo called product-led growth. So some hacks for people just to think about. I have a free LinkedIn Sales Navigator training, right? Like that's kind of aged out, but whatever. Like now you can get 2 our website, my LinkedIn, a framework, post, want to go look on LinkedIn, you can go to my Insta Steve. And, I get randomly people will go to that one time, and I'll get people who follow me on Instagram. And I kind of decided like, maybe that's not the best idea, but if you want people to see the personal side of you and that you play Tom Sawyer on the drums at Guitar Center at 9:00 on a Friday night, like you can go there, but it takes time. Like it takes time, and you can't do it all at once. So thank you guys so much for coming down the journey with us again. My name is Steve Schmidt, Annie Mork, Greg Mork, Jobs for Therapists. So you can go on any of the sites that we talked about today to find them. Thank you guys for joining the podcast. Enjoy the warm weather in the beautiful Twin Cities.
Yes,
Appreciate it. Thanks for
appreciate
having us,
it. It's
Steve.
great talking.